So welcome everybody. For those of you who are joining us from wherever you're coming from, Juliana, it's good to meet your father and your mother joining us from Brazil, which is great. And we have here the uh, uh, the notes that I have here in the Zoom chat. You can please take a look at these. I'm just going to go over some of these things to give you a sense of what's going on. So the agenda for today is we are going to have four stories told first. All of these stories are recorded. Um, and so we'll be playing pre-recorded videos. The first four you'll hear are Juliana's from Brazil first, Ali's from Pakistan, Nusrat's from Bangladesh, and then Abdul from Ghana. And then we're going to stop and actually discuss those stories. We want your feedback, so that's very important for you to provide feedback on the stories, because all of this is recorded. This video is recorded, and your Zoom chat comments are recorded as well, and we'll be sharing those with the family diplomats. Secondly, so those four stories, then discussion. And then the last three stories, which are from Fatima from Pakistan, Bilal, likewise from Pakistan, and from Joshua in Uganda. And again, we'll have discussion. So it'll go stories, discussion, stories, discussion. And we want lots of you, all of you, to provide input. That includes our FDs. It includes our family diplomats, alumni, family diplomats, and current family diplomats. It includes all of our interns and those of you who are observing. A couple of other things. So just to give you some perspective for those of you who may be new to this is the second year we're doing this training in family diplomacy. There are two parts to the training: learning about knowledge about citizen diplomacy and about family, and here learning about storytelling. And so today you're hearing 7 of a total of 15 family diplomat stories. These stories come from 11 countries over 3 continents: Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And this is the culmination of the second year of this family diplomacy training. Let me see here. So I think I covered all that stuff. And I covered the fact that we'll be asking for your feedback and specific feedback, but I want to give you some further instructions about the kind of feedback that we're looking for. One is that you can talk about what you liked about each of the stories. And you can do that in the Zoom chat as you're listening to the stories, and during the discussion. You can type it out in the Zoom chat, or you can speak it when we have the discussion portions. So what you liked, but also anything that you think that could be improved, because don't expect none of us are professional storytellers, and we want people to get feedback on how they can improve their stories. And also we want you to provide some sense of ways in which a particular story may resonate with your own experience in your own country. So by all means, provide your feedback in that way as well. So what you liked, what you think can be improved, and what resonates with your own experience in your own country. Some of the things that you might pay attention to when you're looking about ways to help improve their stories is, was the story clear? Not just think less about the accent, because all of the stories are subtitled so that you can clearly understand them. So think less about the accent and whether or not that's clear, because people can't necessarily help their accents, but whether what they're telling you is clear, the characters and the storyline, et cetera, and so forth. 2, did the storyteller use their voice, their body, or any props? Props meaning like photos or their background effectively. And did the story move you emotionally? That's important. We want to know whether or not you were in fact moved by the story. Okay. Any questions before we start? All right. Maham, I forgot to ask, can you post, you haven't posted Fatima's photo to the folder with all the stories.
I
That,
did.
oh, you
I
did?
just did it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's right next to her, underneath her video.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. So we've got that and we can show it at the end of her story. I think there was somebody who had their hand raised. If you can raise your hand electronically, not just your physical hand, because it's clearer to me who wants to speak if you have any questions. Okay.
Also, can we take
Photos?
the photo? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Let's do that now. So for those of you who have your cameras off, if you could turn it on, briefly, we are going to take so Maham and I are taking screenshots, and Maham, I'm assuming you'll be taking screenshots throughout here of the speakers and so on in dynamic photos. Okay, so on 3, if you could all smile, and Itai, Justice, if you're able, Joshua, turn on your cameras. On 3, 1, 2, 3, smile. And one more, just in case we have some closed eyes or people not with their cameras on. On 3, 1, 2, 3, smile. Fantastic. All right, we're going to get started. I am going to share my screen, and we are beginning with Juliana's story from Brazil about emotional health.
I will start my storytelling about a trip that my parents did, and then do analogy to emotional health. So, being a trip requires to be attentive and have caution. So, you should go in a safe and suitable vehicle and know the exact destination. It was a spring, June of 1987, when my parents were traveling back from a pleasant holiday in my paternal grandmother's city, Aracaju. They were on the way back to our current city, and my father was driving his dreamed car, called Fusca. But the car was old, since my father had bought it from a friend. Suddenly, on the roads of our destination, the car broke down in the middle of the road in the city of the region named Umbaúba. Understandably, they got scared and looked for a person to fix his car. Fortunately, there was a mechanic office near the place where the car had broken down and proceeded to take it there. While the mechanic was evaluated to identify the car's defect, a fight broke out next to the mechanic's office. The mechanic saw his friend involved in the fight, left my father's car, and ran to help his friend, not knowing the reason for the fight. My father, worried about the situation of his car, instinctively ran after the mechanic to bring it back and continue to fix his car because he was worried about the time to come back to home. Thank God my father succeeded to bring the mechanic back without involving himself in the fight. Fortunately, the mechanic fixed the car the same day. However, it got late to come back to home, and they had to sleep in the city where the car broke. So next day, they traveled back and arrived home safely. With this situation, this unexpected and unusual situation made him think, you should not get into fights that aren't yours. The mechanic went after an unknown struggle without knowing the reasons, which could have had terrible consequences. And my father could have been, in fact, for different reasons. So I want to use this story as an analogy to emotional health. I mean, this story should be seen as an alert to us to put our emotional health as a priority. Mainly nowadays, there are some situations that can destabilize a person in a few minutes, and it talks about the emotions are. It reveals the attention that we should give to our emotional health. We should care about our emotions. We should be attentive to what's going on inside of us. It's a reality that's rarely talked about and discussed lanes that should be. We should not ignore our emotions. We have to learn to identify the signs that our inner side sends. Emotions are expressions of our soul, a mixtures of what's happened inside of us. The man, for example, the man who got into the fight probably was very angry, could control the emotional impetus, and let the anger and the hateful control him. When let this happen, we run the risk of becoming emotional sick, and most of times reflects in our physical body. It can be compared, for example, to sensibility. That is, as sensitive the human being is, the man who got into the fight without knowing the reason, just to help his friend, can be compared to the wide world of emotions, which is just partially known for most of us. And my father can be compared to someone with his emotion controlled. He just wants to solve the problem of his car. So this is how emotion affect us. This is what I think about. Emotional health should be seen by all of us.
Great. Hold on a second. So that was Juliana from Brazil. Let me close this down for a moment and go to the next one. Hold on a second. The next story is from Ali from Pakistan, and it's about education.
Hello, everyone.
And migration.
Today, I'm going to talk about my journey of early childhood, my education, career, and how I see the problem of today's family communication issues from both kids and parents' perspective. The family communication problems arise as a result of immigration of one or more of family members, which cause long distance relationship management problems. I grew up in a small town in Pakistan where there were ample basic educational facilities. Although my parents were from a high school educational background, yet it was their desire to serve their kids the best education and professional careers. As I belong to a middle class family, it was close to impossible for me to afford costly higher education in top tier universities in Pakistan. During my early childhood, my father had to make special sacrifices for our family by choosing to work abroad in Saudi Arabia and had to live without us for most of his overseas stay. In this tough decision, my mother had faced tough responsibilities of taking care of kids as father as well as mother. Those years, the communication technologies were a privilege rather than commodities like today. So, as a kid, I and my siblings always missed his live presence and real time parenting mentorship during early 20th century life. My mother had played a great role in keeping us in line with our career objective and balancing the parenting responsibilities. My mother continues to wisely tackle the barriers in our way to obtain quality education. She tries her best to provide us with healthy, enabling environment where we learn, grow, and achieve our education and career milestones. I was able to secure a government-sponsored merit-based scholarship to study for a graduation degree in the top-tier university in Pakistan. This was a life transforming program for our family living in small town. And the program also aimed to address the inclusion of students living in small towns into the top tier universities in Pakistan. Her constructive role makes me achieve a strong educational and career portfolio. In fact, without her tiresome effort and prayers, these education and career professional booming was impossible. While I relocated to a different city away from my hometown for my graduation degree, I had the opportunity to further analyze the family relationship and communication issues from a deeper perspective. This lack of physical presence brings up various communication barriers, which we as a family tries to bridge as the communication technologies became easily accessible. As a result, we as a family started to adopt the social innovation technologies as an early adopters in our localities, as well as teaching them to our elders and parents. When me and my younger brother started to work after graduation, my father retired, and since 2015, he's been living with our family in Pakistan. I would like to emphasize the discussion about the long-lasting impact on the kids and overwhelming burden on one of the parent arise due to the difficult decision of living distant from family. Although the advancement of IT technologies enable us to communicate and setting realistic expectation is and will remain as a challenge to address in today's fast-paced global digital connected world for a happier, prosperous family and eventually progressive communities. Thank you.
All right, so that was Ali from Pakistan talking about education, family, and migration. Let me get to the next story, which is Nusrat from Bangladesh, who is going to be talking with us about climate change.
From haircuts to heartache, Shuman's story will make you question our role in a changing world. Shuman Bormon, a 35 years old young hairdresser, lives in the hilly areas of Bandarban. He carried not just the weight of scissors and combs, but the dreams and hopes of his family and the loved ones who depended on him. But as you may know, fate often places its hand when we least expect it. And for Shuman, that hand was heavy and unrelenting. It dealt him on a blow that would challenge the very core of his being and the test of strength and resilience that few can fathom. In mid-August of 2023, a red alert was imposed in the hilly areas of Bandarban because of heavy rain predicting landslides, where Shuman and his family lived. But Shuman's family, bound by the love for their land, remained unaware of the impending calamity. In a blink of an eye, mountains turned to the monsters, crushing homes and dreams alike. Shuman and his family hurried with the fear of us. The only phrase was heard, "Run everyone, get out now." They rushed out to the open sky. They were seeking safety to the unknown. Some escaped, but Shuman faced a heart-wrenching reality. His mother and sister were gone, buried beneath unforgiving earth. His brother, a fragile survivor, clung to life, carrying the witness of the shared tragedy. You know, loss knew no bounds. Their homes and farmlands lay in ruins. Now they live in the neighbor's home. When I listened to this story from Shuman, my unconscious mind tried to portray the future of me, my family, my city, and my country. But I can't. I can't see any existence of us because it wasn't just the heavy rain that wreaked havoc on Shumon's world. It was the part, the consequence of humanity action, the scars we left on the earth. We burn fossil fuels recklessly, we cut down trees without thought, we allow wildfires to rage unchecked, releasing carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, creating greenhouse gases and altering the very balance of our world. We are the victims and the culprits of our own actions. But I believe with the sorrow and loss, there is hope. Still, we possess the power to change the course of our shared destiny, to save Earth. By doing so, we can save countless family lives like Shumon's family. It's a call to action, a plea for unity, and a reminder that hand in hand, we can nurture the world we call home.
All right, that was Nusrat from Bangladesh, sharing with us about climate change in her country, and a family that was affected, that she knows that was affected by climate change, and a reflection on that. The last story before we start this first discussion is, hold on a second, from Abdul, who is joining us from Ghana. And this story is about a friend and the issue of drug abuse.
The pretty landscape of the modern region where the sunsets painted the sky in colors of orange in the one from the community was palpable. There lived a young man named Napuru. He was born throughout. He was known throughout the town as the brightest young star, a recent graduate with dreams that had reached as high as the northern stars. Napuru had grown up in a modest family, and education was their beacon of hope. He had always been the brightest among his peers, a voracious reader and a talented writer. His graduation day from the university was a moment of unparalleled joy for us, and we believe Napuru was destined for greatness. However, life's twists and turns are often unpredictable. Napuru returned home with his degree in hand. However, the job market in the country was tough and opportunities scarce. This turned into months and he couldn't find employment. The weight of unfulfilled expectations and the pressure to provide for his family began to take a toll on him. One fateful day, he wandered the dusty street of Tamale town. He encountered a group of old friends from his university days. They seemed to be living a life of excitement and excess, a life far removed from the struggles he faced. They invited him to a gathering, promising that it will help him forget his worries and ease his burdens just for a while. That gathering was his first introduction to the world of drugs. What had started as a similar innocent escape from reality quickly spiraled into a full-blown addiction. The initial euphoria that drugs offered provided a temporary respite from his troubles, but it came to a devastating cost. Napuru's once promising future began to unravel. We watched in despair as the vibrant young graduate who had known transformed into a mere shadow of himself. His eyes lost its sparkles and his laughter became a distant memory. He stopped writing and his dreams faded like the northern star on a cloudy night. Napuru's downward spiral was heartbreaking for his family and friends. We tried interventions, sent him to rehabilitation centers, and prayed for his recovery, but addiction had dug its claws too deep. He would often disappear for days, chasing the next high, leaving his loved ones in a state of constant worry and anguish. The once bustling streets of the northern region filled with laughter and community spirit now whispered tales of Nakuru tragic descent into darkness. His story was a stark reminder that addiction knows no boundaries and it can strike even the brightest stars. As the years passed, Nakuru health deteriorated and his family hope dwindled. They had lost the Nakuru we had known and loved to the chronic grip of addiction. Another region known for its resilience could do little to save one of its own from this silent epidemic. Nakuru's story serves as a sad reminder of the urgent need for better mental health and addiction. For better mental health and addiction support services in the northern region and beyond. It highlights the importance of early intervention of community outreach to prevent others from falling victim to the tragic fate. For Nakuru, the bright young star whose light had extinguished too soon, his story is a somber testament to the power of addiction to eclipse even the most promising futures.
Okay, that was Abdul from Ghana talking about the tragic story of a friend of his who lost his life to drug addiction. We are switching now. Let me just escape from this screen. We are switching now to discussion. So I want to just remind you, let me stop sharing and so that we can all see each other. Remind you of that if you could raise your hand digitally to indicate when you want to speak, that you'd like to speak. We would love to hear from you, all of you. So I'll be pointing to people in particular I'd love to hear from. Please raise your hands and offer whatever feedback you would like to offer. Just keep in mind what you liked, what you think could be improved, and what resonates with your own experience in your own country. I'm going to be calling on some of you. Joe.
First of all, I'm so happy with the journey here, because I think that for most, you started out in this place and you've got these very well constructed stories. I'm gonna go quickly because don't want to take up everybody's time. I think globally the stories connected, and Juliana, your story really connected to sort of the issue of I kept thinking of parenting and like how I have to tell that story, or I have to explain involvement or non-involvement in conflict with my kids like almost every day to keep them safe and protected. So I could imagine that theme connects to everybody everywhere, especially with the craziness that's going around in the world. For those of you that were able to make eye contact with the camera, much more impressive, because you brought me into the story. And I know that some of you are working towards that, and some of you are reading. When you read and you're not looking at the camera, you're not engaging as much. So just overall for everybody, that the more you can look directly into the camera, the more you can draw people into the story. Nusrat, same great structure, good use of your voice, and again, I think another like global message that we all need to think of. I think you had a very good beginning, middle, and the end. Abdul, the same. The eye contact was not there as much, but the story is a really good story, and I would look forward to hearing it when you can speak it. And the only thing I would say for Abdul is you were doing some movement, you were sort of rocking back. That was a little bit distracting. So if you can, when you practice more, you'll be able to sit still and just tell your story. And very global. All of the topics were, I think, connected to all of us. So whereas sometimes people told stories that were very, very specific to themselves, I could relate a lot to all of these topics, and so I'm glad to see that.
Great, thanks, Joe, for that specific feedback. Others here, we'd love to hear from. Tennille, I'm glad you raised your hand because you were one of the people that I'm going to be calling on. Your thoughts. Tennille is again joining us from Germany, but she's from Trinidad and Tobago, and told a really cool story about her own migration experience from Trinidad to Germany last year, which won an award. So Tennille.
Hi, yeah. I really love these stories. I had some questions for some of them, so I'm just going to ask the questions all one time. I wanted to tell Abdul, I liked how he described everything. For what I liked most of all is that it really gripped my heart, and I felt that I knew his friend even though I didn't know him. I like his descriptions. I like how he paused because it left me an expectation, what happened next. I'm like, please, I hope it's not bad. I wanted to ask Abdul how old was his friend when he passed away, and how long ago was this that happened. For Nusrat, I liked her descriptions as well. When she said the mountains turn to monsters, because it's almost the things that we find haven in, things that it could turn to hell. The things that we want protection is the things that would turn against us if we don't mend our ways and try to take the action needed to for the climate change. For Ali, on education, I wanted to ask him how long his father was in Saudi, how long did he have to live without his dad, and I wanted to ask him if he was the eldest of his siblings, so if he had to take the mantle of being the firstborn male, had to look out for his family or anything like that. And also for Juliana, Brazil, I wanted to say that I really loved her story. I think it was very relevant. I like how she paused. And I also like how her voice tone was, because it made me feel like I was sitting down with a therapist, and she's telling me, okay, this is what you need to do. This is some very calming, and I was just listening. So yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Awesome, Tennille. I'm glad you had specific feedback and questions for some of this FD storytellers. Anybody among the FDs who are here? I think Ali is not with us, but Bilal, Bilal is actually a story coming up, but Juliana or any of the others we just had your stories on, if you have any answers or just responses to Neil's questions.
I don't know if Abdul is here. It was mostly just Abdul and Ali.
Yeah, Abdul, I think I'm actually searching through here to see if Abdul is with us. Abdul unfortunately has bad connection issues with Ghana, so I think he's been jumping in and out, and Ali I think is not with us. So let's actually hear from, before we hear from Richie, who is joining us from China. We got Aaron, who's actually comes from Ghana and is one of our FDs from last year, and would just love to hear his perspective, perhaps on Abdul's story from Ghana, but also and your experience perhaps of the drug problem in Ghana, but also more broadly, if you have thoughts on the other stories as well. Aaron?
Very well. So, Paul, good afternoon from Ghana. It's been a long time, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to join you once again. On the story of Abdul, I just wrote in the comment section that it's a very serious issue when it comes to addiction in this part of the world, where there are no rehabilitation centers for early interventions. In most cases, situations get worse to the worst level before interventions come in, and we are not expecting any result from there because even facilities to take care of them are not available. That is how difficult it is to deal with issues of addiction in this part of the world. For the other stories, I joined quite late, so I was having internet issues. So I listened to only Abdul's story. My general overview of what has been going on so far with Learning Life, I think it's a good initiative. I have had some experiences with some local organizations here, and I'm quite sure by January I'll be doing something that has to do with family stories, and I will keep you posted, Paul. Yeah, so it's a good initiative, and we will keep it going.
Good. Aaron, we look forward to hearing from you as to what you're going to be doing with family and family stories. Thanks for your perspective from Ghana on this. We'll look forward to hearing. There's another story from Africa for what it's worth coming, and the last one of the 7 stories that we're going to be hearing is from Joshua from Uganda. But before we get to that, the last 3 stories, and before we get to Richie, who's joining us from China, and her thoughts on the stories thus far, I just want to recognize some of our interns you might notice are doing a great job providing you with specific feedback on your stories. So it's one thing to say great job. It's another thing to say what was a good job exactly. And so some of our interns are doing just that. And I encourage all of our interns to be doing that in the Zoom chat. And likewise for the rest of you, because again, we're going to be sharing this with all of the FD storytellers, all 15 of them. Richie from China.
I want to say that I really enjoy Abdul's storytelling. First, I think the pace and tone of his speech make it very comfortable to listen to. Secondly, his body language, not very strong, but it really conveys his emotions effectively. So I think this is really a good story. And lately, I've been working as a social media blogger in China, and I think this story motivates me a lot, because in China, I found that there are a significant number of underage individuals who, due to the immense pressure of their academic and their personal lives, are suffering from depression and anxiety. And so consequently, they started using a large quantity of medications. These medications are very inexpensive, and although they can treat anxiety, they are good students. They are not bad students. And although they can treat anxiety, it helps them to study better. But they can be highly addictive. So what awaits these teenagers is not the promising age of 18, but a terrifying 18 marked by drug addiction, like health, and their physical health and future prospects may be at risk. So that's the reason why this story motivates me a lot. That's all. Thank you.
Richie, really appreciate your perspective. It's nice to hear not just from Ghana, but from China, two very different countries and on different continents about the drug problem. As you're probably well aware, in the United States here, I think anybody who's reading the news can attest, drug issues are a major problem. Joe, I don't know if you want to share about that. You're welcome not to, but they are directly affecting families in the United States. And indeed, hundreds of thousands of people are dying every year currently in the United States from drug addiction. Joe, did you want to share something about that?
Yeah, I'm going through that right now with a family member. And the one thing that sort of connecting, and it's like, wow, it's even here, I want, everybody or people may think that, the United States has everything figured out. But it is such an entitlement to be able to get the treatment that you need. It's very, very costly. Insurance companies don't want to pay for it. And so, there's a very small percentage of the population here that can really get the treatment that they need. And it sounds like that's an issue globally, that, it's not taken seriously enough, even though we could probably, it'd probably be in the top 10 reasons why of deaths or loss in the world. There's still not that focus, so that there's I guess places, and I don't know if anybody's here from a country that has socialized medicine, but it's really just very interesting. In my case, I have to fight week by week, and I have insurance, and the insurance pays it, but we have to prove it. You have to prove every few weeks that it's a necessity. And so that's a real big issue. I think a governmental issue, a community issue, in that if we don't take this seriously, then there is really no end to it. And I also then think about how much money is being made from people's demise, and so it's connected to the economy in a way that if they started treating people and they stopped drug use, there'd be a lot of people out of work and without jobs, because it's that big of an industry.
Yeah. Any other comments? Thanks, Joe, for sharing about this. I want to remind Joe that Joe sits on our board of directors, was one of our storytellers last year, is one of the people that was guiding us in the storytelling training this year. And he has 8 boys that he adopted. 8 boys that he adopted from foster care in their teenage years, so challenging years, and so he's kind of one of our models for family diplomacy. Any others here that would like to comment before we move on to the next? Yes, Anya.
Hey, Paul, just so you know, Abdul's back. So for anybody who was wondering about that perspective, Abdul just came back.
Great. Thanks, Anya. And Abdul, we were talking about the drug problem, and getting perspectives, not just from Ghana, from one of our storytellers from last year. I don't know if you can hear us, Abdul, but also from China and from the United States, on this kind of serious drug problem that's killing hundreds of thousands of people across the world. It's probably millions of people across the world, given how addictive some of the current drugs are. Any comments from our storytellers on these issues? Would love to hear from the storytellers thus far. Juliana, Abdul, Ali, and Nusrat. Mo, go ahead. Mo is joining us Mo is from Afghanistan, but joining us from Cyprus. He's a refugee from Afghanistan. Mo, you're muted. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello.
Yes.
Well, sir, just firstly, actually, just my name is Mohammed. Just when you're calling Mo, somehow,
Oh, sorry.
I'm thinking, who might Mo be? Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, by the way, sir, thank you. First, about the way these four people told their stories. The first, Juliana. I mean, the story, just took me really. Just I could feel myself there. How the story just made there, but the way that she told, the tone of her voice, if there, pauses, she had pauses there, but I mean, if there might be if the lower or just somehow higher, I mean, if she could do that kind of things, the story was somehow very emotional, and it was really good. About Ali and Abdul also, I mean, the same thing goes. If they could move their voices, up and down, long pauses somehow, the stories would have been somehow great. And Nusrat, just she used a lot of body language. I really like that. But out of these stories, Ali's stories, just took me back to the, my country. That last year actually, just I told my story about my immigration and about this thing, that how my father somehow left my family. My mom took care of everything in Afghanistan, and also Abdul's story just took me back again to do the stories to the terrible situation that we have currently in Afghanistan, and also we had, that is about heroin or just hashish, that it took thousands or hundreds of lives every year. Thank you so much.
Just to provide some background on what Mohammed, sorry, I have to get into the habit of calling you Mohammed rather than Mo, sorry. You may or may not be aware that that Afghanistan at different points has been one of the major producers of heroin, this highly addictive drug in the world. And it is, of course, there have been efforts to try to eradicate it, and then other efforts to support it, because it's such a profitable trade, as Joe was pointing out, but in a very poor country. So you can imagine it's a product that is so enriching for those who produce it. There's a real incentive in a poor country to produce it, despite its consequences, not just for that country, but for other countries in the world. So, the drug trade, interestingly, just like our family diplomacy, is an international endeavor. It's very much an international trade, and it has major repercussions for families across the world. So it's really good to hear stories, your perspectives from different parts of the world. I should also add, Mohammed's, what he's pointing out here is there's some resonance and a lot of resonance for a lot of people who have had to migrate or to flee their countries, either as migrants pushed out by economic circumstances, I think, out of their countries, like in the case of Ali, or in Mohammed's case, in the case of violence in the country as a refugee. And so these, are really kind of important stories. So I'm glad we're talking about them. Okay, we are going to switch gears and turn back to the stories. We have 3 final stories for you. And let me share my screen. The next story is from Fatima, likewise from Pakistan. Her story is about women's empowerment and her father.
I was going through the hardest days of my life when I was diagnosed with lupus, along with many other autoimmune diseases. At that time, I remember I was already burdened by the severe illness of my father, who had been my great support. And I was dealing with the toxic behaviors of the society, as well as struggling with numerous financial challenges. I was also battling with severe depression and panic attacks, and I remember the sleepless nights and the shivering of my body and my hands, and the hollowness of my heart. I felt as I was on the verge of nervous breakdown. Hold on. Don't make up your mind and come to the conclusion. This story is not about shedding tears about my illness, depression, and financial hardships. Instead, it is the evidence of my continuous journey of struggles towards success, achievements, resilience, bravery, family support, and refusal to give up. I'm Fatima Shah, and this is the story of strength, courage, and true spirit. I'm born in KP, which is a male-dominant society where raising voice for women's rights is considered a crime, and being different from others is a sin. And yes, my father has committed that sin. He was a different person. I was lucky enough to have a father, a very supportive father, who raised all of us up without any gender discrimination to educate us. Otherwise, in this society, we still face many social constraints, and discussing women issues is still a taboo. So after getting married, I became a part of a joint family system where I faced countless challenges that not only damaged my personality, but also affected my mental and physical health. I was compelled to live that life because returning to my parents' home is unacceptable for this society. Secondly, I lacked the financial independence to live in a separate house. I had two options. One is living that life forever, or take a charge of my destiny, improve myself, and get out of it. Luckily, I chose the second option. I discussed all this with my father and decided to turn the page of the misery and write a new story of hope, courage, empowerment, and set an example for other women of the KP. My father, along with a few people around me, were so helpful in terms of guiding me, motivating me, giving me hope and strength. So alongside my demanding role as a training officer, household responsibilities, and motherhood, I pursued a master's degree after marriage, followed by my MPhil in education. I spent wisely in few investments to become financially independent. In this journey, I faced countless challenges, but I refused to surrender, and giving up is never an option for me. This is what my father has told me always. This journey has taught me the importance of educating and empowering women, and for that, the family support is very, very important. The more I realize, the more I become determined to spread awareness and bring change in this society regarding women empowerment through education. So today, it's been 16 years since I'm actively spreading awareness. I have worked in rural and tough tribal areas of Pakistan, where working for such purpose involves a life risk even. Convince tough communities to educate their girls, and as well as trained countless teachers, build my own house with my savings, educate not only my child, but I support other children also who needs education. My journey was not an easy journey, I must say, but a very beautiful journey of converting my pain into my strength. This journey reminds me the only thing that support of my father has changed my life. And this is the reason I work in communities to educate and empowerment their daughters. And I'm sure that would be the only decision they will never regret in life. Thank you.
That was Fatima from Pakistan talking with us about her journey and about girls and women's empowerment and her relationship with her own father. I do want to share with you. She's asked us to share with you, and Maham, I do not see the photo. Let me just refresh my
It's in stories done. I'm sorry. I thought we had to
okay,
put it.
okay, you put it in there. So Fatima asked us to share a photo of her mother, herself and her father, and I'm searching for it now.
Fatma Shah dad.
Okay, there we go.
Oh yeah, d'accord.
There we go. So this is Fatima and her father, and as she was indicating, her father had a major impact, major positive impact on her life by being kind of extraordinary in Pakistan, supportive of her as she went through kind of struggles with her own husband and in her pursuit of girls and women's empowerment in rural areas of Pakistan. Okay, we are going to switch to, hold on a second. Let me just get back to the right place. And we are going to, this is the penultimate or the second to last story from Bilal, who is likewise from Pakistan.
Hello, my name is Bilal Zia, and today I'm going to explain about my family deployment story. Basically, this story belongs to my education and related to my family because it is a family deployment program. So, before going to start my story, let me introduce briefly about myself. I'm Bilal Zia from Pakistan. My elder brother is also an electrical engineer. I have one younger sister. My father is an agriculturist and my mother is a school teacher. So let's move to 5 years back. It is a matter of almost 5 years ago when I was in intermediate and I was totally blank at that time about my future plans, my career goals. At that time, most of the people thought that to get higher education means you will earn a lot of money. This was a mindset of a lot of Pakistani people, and unfortunately, I was one of them. I was thinking that to get a higher education means you will earn a lot of money. And after seeing people with higher education unemployed, extremely disappointed from education system, and I thought not to study more. And at that time, I was totally blank what I have to do about my future plans, my career goals. And it was a really disappointed period for me. And at that time, my parents motivated me to study. And after that, I got an admission in engineering. And after doing engineering, today I realized that study does not mean that you will earn from more, but it gives you a knowledge and sense how you behave, how you treat people. And today I really understand the importance of education. Education gives you a decent lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle, a way how you talk, how you communicate with people. And I'm very happy that I studied and I passed an engineering exam, and today I'm an electrical engineer. Thank you.
That was Bilal from Pakistan talking with us about his transformation with regard to his view of education. Okay, so the last story is from Joshua from Uganda. And it is about labor pains.
Chances are almost all women in this call have experienced labor pains. And if you're a man like me, you've heard of the phrase more times than you can count. On 8th October last year, my wife Cindy went through labor pains. Amid this increasing contraction, she calls, "Honey, what can one do to reduce this pain?" Of course, as a man, I had to calm myself down with no vivid answer, but to look straight into her eyes and picked Bill with the lyrics. Lean on me. Sometimes in our lives, we all have pain. We all have sorrow. But if we are wise, we know that there's always tomorrow. Honey, I feel a lot of labor, pain. Lean on me. When you're not strong, I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry your own. Oh, it won't be long. See, I feel a lot of labor pain. He screamed and grabbed my shirt. The neighbors came to my rescue and rushed my wife straight to the labor suit. Of course, as a man, I quickly grabbed my shoes and ran to escort the team. Reaching the hospital, the doctors told me to keep calm and wait in the recovery room, which is just next to the labor suit. Only and only if I remove my shoes. That's when I discovered that I'd put on different colors of my wife's shoes. While in the recovery room, I kept pacing to and fro. And that's when I remembered. My sister who died while giving birth. Enough of plea. Hold. Hold. There was total silence in the room. Then a baby cried. The doctors came out of the room and congratulated me for having received a baby boy. I broke into dance and joy for having received a complete family. Today, as I stand before you, I'm crowned with a title of a dad. In this world, we all need someone to lean on. I'm looking for that one person to lean on to prevent mothers in Uganda from dying while giving birth. Lean on me, and I will lean on you.
Okay. That was Joshua from Uganda talking with us about labor pains and the challenge of women dying in birth. So that's all of our stories. I want to get feedback from you guys. Would love to hear from your feedback on these last 3 stories, but also feel free to also reference the first 4 stories as you kind of comment on these things. If you can raise your hand electronically, like Leroy is doing, please give us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Leroy, who's joining us from Liberia. One of our
Yes,
family diplomats.
I'm really, really excited about hearing and seeing the actions of Joshua. It was awesome, seriously. And I'm amazed. I must admit.
Leroy really liked Joshua's story. We actually have somebody, Maria from Uganda, who's actually currently living in the United States. Maria, I don't know if you would please, it's part of the purpose of having you here is to have you comment on these stories. Maria was actually involved with Joe in storytelling, and which led to an actual video cartoon story about her relationship with her daughter. So we'd love to hear from you about that story, Maria. But Joe, you have your hand raised.
I did. Joshua, you're a performer. I think there's so much potential in that story. I love your animation. I love your expressions. It's almost like sort of like a comic routine. And then the way you get us all relaxed, and then you turn us around and say and make it serious. I think it's genius. So I encourage you to continue to work on it. And in general, for everybody, this is just the beginning. You have now created a foundation for a story. Now you can make it as long as you want, or now you can go back and work on them. So I encourage everybody who has the desire to refine your story now, and there's no more 5-minute limit. These are great stories, so I would love to hear them more. But Joshua, that's it. I wanted to say that about you. Fatima, I love the fact, I like that you stopped us. You got our attention. You redirected us. It was real personal. It was like, just when you could sort of be, fading out, you say, whoa. I think that was a very good tool. And I like that it was a story of hope, and the way that you told it was like a hopeful story. Because most of the time, I think when we do this, we're less hopeful. We're just telling. But yours was like, no, let's roll up our sleeves and get things done. All of these stories are universal. Bilal, your story was great as well. And I'm doing it. One of the things I was gonna say is, and Bilal, I really appreciated the fact that that you told the story. Like you didn't seem like you were reading. You were talking to us. Now, if you want to expand and tell that story, I think there's probably a whole lot more that you can add to that story, more details, tell it as a story. And I keep doing it. What I want to say is go back and listen to it and try to eliminate the ums, which is what I'm using. So it's difficult, but with practice, I think it would be good. And before I forget, I really have to say just that the subtitles are absolutely excellent. In addition, I think it was a very good idea. And the work that the interns did with the storytellers was just, you can't put a price tag on it, because I think that made such a big difference this year. And so I want to thank you, interns, for all of the work that you put in, because it shows. And I think that people who were here before probably appreciated that sort of constant and available feedback. So that's what I want to say.
Absolutely, Joe. I'll be thanking our interns again a number of times, but yes, they were really instrumental, not just in providing feedback, but all those transcriptions were done by our interns. Of course, nowadays we have artificial intelligence, which is making it a lot easier to transcribe, but you still have to kind of like go over the artificial intelligence because it doesn't always get the wording right. And even then, it's still imperfect, but it's as Joe pointed out, makes a big difference to our ability to follow you in your stories. So I'd love to hear from Maria. Maria, you had your hand raised and then it disappeared, but would love to hear from you, given that you're from Uganda, not just about that story, but the other stories as well.
Thank you, Paul. I'm sorry I came in late, so I missed the first batch of stories. I only caught Fatima, Bilal, and Joshua's stories. And I think I would like to say I'm so glad this is not the cohort within which I competed, because there was no way I could have won with these stories. They're amazing. I do really love Fatima's story, the way she brought it out. Initially, I was feeling so sad because it started with the sorrow and hi, Joe. Then she kept us moving forward. It's a story of hope. But when I put on my women empowerment hat, I'm just looking at the fact that men have played such a key role in the narrative, eventually, with how women are successful. Her father having supported her is a very big, important force. So this story really speaks out to show that men actually play a bigger role in women empowerment. And I love the fact that her father and her have such a beautiful relationship. Their picture was beautiful. So that was a very nice story. I love Bilal's story, overcoming all those different circumstances and then eventually getting his engineering degree. That's amazing. All the stories are beautiful. And Joshua's story because he's from Uganda, I'm biased, but also just the way he carried it out, the way he studied it, the satire in it. And then talking about his sister, he brought in something because this is a real big issue. And just for him to bring it out in such a way that he captivates you. And then he actually emphasizes that women do die while giving birth. And also emphasizing once more the support and the presence of men, because he was there, because he was supporting her, it plays a very big role. It's a very hard time, but knowing that your partner is there, as Joshua will attest to this, maybe so many men in Uganda are not present at that time. They will give you the money to go to the hospital. They will pay the bills, but they will not be present. So it is a very important thing that he's bringing it out, the excitement that he has, because most of them, I don't want to say most of them, I don't want to sound like that, but in many situations, it's yet another child that's being born, but he's there, he's a father, and he's excited to be in the room, and he's excited to see his wife go through this. It's a wonderful story, and it's also a wonderful message that's being portrayed out there, because
somehow Maria, you got muted. You're back, I think.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay. You're back now. You were saying it's such an inspiring story. Go ahead.
Yes, just briefly, what I just wanted to say is it's inspiring for him to bring the message out that the men need to be present, that the financial support alone will not be enough for a lady when she's giving birth, that the narrative is changed. Less women will die when they have that support. And also, if he's present, if there's need for an emergency treatment or something, the presence of the man is important. Thank you.
So Maria, if I'm understanding correctly, in some cases, men don't show up to their own children's birth at the hospital. They just provide the money and so on if they can, and the woman gives birth to the child without the husband around. Is that right?
In many cases.
Huh?
Many cases. Yes, very many cases.
And that's and you said just because it's just another child, or it's because men are not supposed to be in the hospital?
It's another child. Joshua's story surprised me because of the way he's excited, because I've seen so many men. His wife is giving birth, and the child, yes, there's that excitement, but the accountability, the responsibility sometimes is lacking. I think that's what I wanted to say. Yes.
Great. And I'm glad that so go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to ask Maria, it sounds like you're trying to say that it's like, that's your job. You go do that, and I'm going to continue to do. That's a feeling I'm getting in the way that you're trying to describe it, right? Okay.
Yes, very well put, Joe. That's what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha.
Yes.
It's really helpful to get your perspective, because I think my presumption in the United States is if you're having a kid, it doesn't matter what your gender is, you're going to the hospital, and you're there with, if you're a husband, you're there with your kid, and your wife, and you're trying to support her as much as possible, and you're feeling guilty for the fact that she's going through all the pains, and might die from that. And in other countries, it's much more of a reality. Although we don't actually have, we still have high infant mortality rates, or excuse me, not just infant mortality rates, but women's death and childbirth, unfortunately, particularly for women more disadvantaged. I want to switch to Tennille, and then Juliana. Thanks, Maria, for your comments. Really helpful.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I wanted to agree with Maria also when she said that it's not good, that not often that we get a male perspective when it comes to like labor and pregnancy. And usually you'll hear a woman's perspective on what she experienced, but to know like Joshua there as a dad being there, and he was so happy. He really is a performer, and his story was captivating. And I know he must have made his wife smile. She must say was a little angry because she's telling you, come on now, and you're like singing to her, but I know you made her smile. I know I like Bilal's story. It felt like he was in a conversation with me, and I really appreciated that. And I liked Fatima's story. I like her plot twist where she said like the story is not one of sadness, but is one of empowerment and that kind of stuff. And I had a question for, I don't know if she's here, if she'll be able to answer it. But I wanted to ask her, if you were to imagine, like, if your dad wasn't there, do you think your story would have ended differently if you didn't have your father's support, or would you have still pushed through to make it happen? Yeah, and that is my question. Thank you.
Awesome, Tennille. Juliana from Brazil.
Hello, everybody. I just want to say that it was a challenging experience to do this story, because I decided to change the issue in the beginning of October. Raquel, my advisor, suggests that I do analogy. Then I had this idea to choose the characters to the story and bring to. Then I decided to change to emotional health and link the situation and the story. It was a great experience, and I thank everybody that enjoyed it.
Right. Juliana, just one piece of feedback. I actually liked the fact that you were kind of very measured and calm in your storytelling. You could see your facial expression would change at certain times. It became warmer when you began telling the story, but you were very calm throughout. And I think that spoke to your central point about managing your emotions. So I think that was, I don't know if you intended that, but it worked well. So
it was,
yeah, Paul,
I tried. Okay, say it.
Joe, then Juliana.
Yeah, there's people who read bedtime stories on like Alexa and whatever. I could hear your voice. Like I could, if you spoke to me like that, like, or not you, but a recording, reading a story or telling a story, just talking, that would be it. Your voice is very soothing, and I could just see that, like, sometimes celebrities here create, do these narratives that you purchase, and you instead of like thunderstorms, they're just talking to you. Your voice is like that to me. It's like very calming and peaceful.
Good. I thank you. I try to slow down and think about the story and bring emotion to different parts of the story. The first part, then when I was talk about emotions. So I get it, thank God.
Terrence or Chia, who is joining us from United Arab Emirates, but who actually comes from Cameroon, and as for them, so those of you might not be aware, who's likewise a refugee from the civil war essentially happening in Cameroon between French and English-speaking portions of the population. Terrence, your thoughts?
Thank you, Paul, for giving me the chance. I greet everyone. I had some issue with connection because I'm out of home. And I thank the storyteller for today. I am just thinking that if they give us another chance for story, we will get more better, because our story all are getting more better, more better. So I thank you guys so much. And also I want to comment with this. I just want to make a comment, like in the case of Joshua, you know, it happens like there is no one that your wife put to bed, you will not be happy, you know. But sometimes people don't show their happiness out. It doesn't mean that, because I think I'm not correct. I hear like some people don't really show that happiness, but I don't believe that there is no one who the wife will put to bed strong, healthy, and the person won't be happy. So I thank Joe. Also, Joe, I love the way you do analysis, because you just point at the right thing, you clarify it. Really, you are very perfect when you do your analysis. When I start observe the way you talk about story, I always admire, because you always point at the point and you analyze, you point at the point and you analyze, and that is great. I really appreciate that. Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Chia.
Yeah.
Richie, who's from China, your thoughts?
I really like Fatma's story, and I think her narration is logical and her language is concise and clear. But however, I believe she could make more eye contact with the camera, so that it would make it easier for others to connect with her story. And after listening to her story, I think Chinese women are better off than Pakistani women. But they still face many challenges. For instance, I am currently researching the survival status of single mothers in China, and I believe it's much tougher than in the United States. In the US, there's a stronger emphasis on individualism, while in China, there's a greater emphasis on family. And often requiring mothers to sacrifice their personal careers and lives for the sake of their family's happiness. Single mothers are often viewed as not fulfilling their duty to the family, or as having made mistakes, leading to discrimination in the job and the marriage markets. So I sincerely hope to be as courageous as Fatma and help women in China better realize their self-worth in the future. That's all.
Richie, I'm really glad that it sounds like you're finding inspiration from Fatima's story. I think it's interesting because gender, or the relationship between men and women is one of the major themes in a lot of the stories that we have. And in fact, Maria's point about the linkages between Fatima's story about her father and her supportive father, and Joshua's story about him being the supportive dad, or about to be dad. I think I didn't realize the connection there, so I'm really appreciative of the importance she raised to the role of men in empowering women, giving voice to women, and that's crucially important. So I mean, it's part of the reason why I'm so excited about Leroy. I have to mention Leroy, because he talks so passionately about his mother and the enormous influence and the enormous courage that his mom has shown in basically striking out on her own, refusing to become just a second wife, and raising her kids, becoming a teacher, et cetera, and so forth. So we want to hear women's stories, and we want to hear men's stories, essentially in part praising and supporting women for the kinds of struggles that women go through, oftentimes for the benefit of men. So any other thoughts on the discussions before we end?
I just have a quick question. It's going to be quick. In the United States, there was a battle, and a battle, not a war, but men now can get a benefit if they're working and their spouse has a child, they can take paternity leave. So one of the benefits maybe of things that are happening here is women can go out on maternity leave and there's the paid, but then the husband or the man or the father of the child can also get paternity leave. Is that just unheard of everywhere else?
And just to clarify, there's a difference between paternity leave as in, like, you're not going to lose your job if you go for a few weeks to a few months to take care of your child as a man or a woman, versus not only can you will not lose your job if you go on paternity or maternity or parental leave for your child, but also you'll get payment during that time. So there are some countries where you're actually going to get paid to go on paternity or maternity leave. So there are two kinds of issues, I guess, that Joe is raising, is and if you guys are willing to share about your experience wherever in the world. I'd love actually to hear from Richie again in China. I don't know if you're aware of what the policies are with regards to men and women when they have a child. What are they allowed to go on leave from work to take care of their children? And do they get paid in that time? And then Joshua afterwards. Richie?
In China, it is very difficult for women who have baby. They cannot go back to work again sometimes, and they cannot get any money from from her workplace, or she can only get money from her husband. If her husband don't give money to her, she may just cannot live in this world. And I have a sister who lives in Australia. When she has a baby, her company gave her a holiday, which lasted for 6 months after she gave a baby. And when her body is just all right, she came back to her company. She can also do the same job as just like she left before. But in China, you cannot do that. If you leave this company 1 year, when you came back, you cannot, your boss will give you some difficult job, even though he know or she know that you cannot do this because you leave this place so long. You need some time to know these new things, but you don't have this kind of chance in China, actually. So the only choice for women in China just to leave the workplace and just stay at home and get money from her husband.
Thanks for that perspective from China. Joshua, did you want to say something about, give a perspective? Joshua or Maria, a perspective very different, not from China, not from the United States, but from Uganda.
Oh, thank you so much. Let me first thank everyone for the kind feedback and evaluation about my speech. Here in Uganda, I also have leave for women. I think it's 60 days, that's 3 months. For the men, it's like 10 days. It depends on the organization. I'll have to look at the labor law, but in Uganda, it's 3 months for the ladies. My speech about labor pain, of course, it was my personal experience. Of course, I had to put in some humor, but it's a personal experience. Oh yes, I loved I loved seeing Nasaka from Uganda speaking, of course, just emphasizing what we go through here in Uganda. It's really evident. It was good evidence that another person was also sharing the same experience.
However, I just felt like the caption of my speech, I saw some people giving me comments. I think it was missed out a little bit. For example, when I was saying we all have pain, and it was transcribed, we all love pain. No, but in the written stories I sent through, they are very clearly written. And Paul, I thought I was going to give a live presentation. But it was all well that you played my video. All in all, thank you so much.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. I didn't know that you were planning on giving it live. I thought we were recording it. So that's my error. And we'll have to, yes, we always, I think, have to improve on the transcriptions. And apologies for that. But Joshua, you're going to say something?
No, that's it. Just thanking you and for bringing us this far. I just love that. I think I can add value even to other future storytelling training. I really have the skill. Sure, I can add value.
Great.
Thank you.
So speaking of, that's a good transition to finish off, because I'm cognizant of the fact that we are above beyond time. So I just want to wrap up for everybody, especially for Richie, who's it's now 1:36 in AM in China. So I really appreciate that she stayed up late to be with us. Nusrat, likewise, it's quite late her time, and Lakshmi, who's in India and has joined us and has offered comments in the Zoom chat. Really appreciate that you guys have provided comments. I just want to before we end, I want to tell you what's happening next. So this is the end of the storytelling. Next Sunday is the final meeting of our family diplomats. That's going to be a private meeting, so we're not inviting everybody, but rather just a private meeting of the family diplomats, our interns and volunteers, to get feedback on the experience of the training this year, what we can do better, what we did well, et cetera, and so forth. So we really want your feedback on this. After, as you notice, this is recorded, and all the stories were recorded. We are going to be comparing the pre-stories before the training and the post-stories after the training to determine who is going to be getting certificates of completion for their training, but also who are the most improved storytellers. So it's important that just to mention that we're not looking for the best storytellers, we're looking for the most improved storytellers. That's out of fairness to everybody, because the point is for everybody to improve and to get better and better. And so to reward people for improving in their storytelling. None of us are professionals. We want to get better at these things, because ultimately we want to connect you on whatever issues you care about, right? Whether it's women's empowerment, or it's climate change, or it's education and family, or migration. We want you to become a more effective advocate as a family diplomat, and to ultimately connect you with power. What that means is connect you with media, with government, with businesses and nonprofits, so that you can advocate effectively for those issues, right? So this is a long-term process. So I'm glad, Joshua, that you mentioned, and that others have mentioned, I want to keep working at this, because that's exactly what we want you to do, is to get better and better at this, and ultimately become official family diplomats, right? Because they're all family diplomats in training. And then lastly, I want to mention, there is going to be on December 9th, you'll get more information about this. We'll be sending it out. There will be a live event to announce the awards and the certificates of completion for this. And so that will be on Saturday, December 9th. You can put it in your schedule books, please. That's from 2 to 5 p.m. In Washington, D.C., here on the East Coast of the United States. It's quite late for those of you in China and other parts, so I don't expect you necessarily to show up. But it's just going to be 1 hour for those people who are joining us on Zoom, and that's from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern time here. So it's really late in China. Do not expect you to, I'm thinking of you in particular, Richie. Don't expect you to participate in that. But if you can, please join us then. We're going to be live with an audience here in Washington, D.C. that wants to hear from you guys, especially from the family diplomats. They're going to be asking you questions. We're going to have you on screen. That's why Kayla is working on kind of developing family profiles of each of you, is because those are actually going to show up on screen and we're going to be sharing them via social media. So you really are our stars, and we want to promote you. And so it's important for you to, if you can, show up on December 9th from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, and that's Washington time. Lastly, thanks again to our interns. I want to thank especially Raquel and Maham, who were with our family diplomats throughout this process, but also for Maggie and Kayla, who helped with the transcriptions. They were not perfect, but they were a heck of a lot better than if they had not been around. And so really appreciate their work. I want to thank the FDs, the family diplomats who joined us today from last year. So Tennille, Lakshmi, Itai, and others, and of course thank our family diplomats for participating in the Zoom chat, especially. And Richie, thanks again for staying up so late in China. All right, everybody. And Joe, oh, sorry,
Anya, you forgot.
Oh, and Anya, and I'm sorry, and Joe and Anya. I'm terrible with these things. It should be so. Yes, Anya, who joined us, who was one of our interns last year, was an intern for the whole year, not just a semester. So thank her, and she's continued with us as a volunteer. She is one of our star volunteers. And Joe, thank you for I can't thank you enough for kind of both your, as Chia was pointing out, your good points and your caring, I think first and foremost. So all right, everybody. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. See you soon.
Thanks,
Bye.
Bob.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.